Hi everyone, welcome back to my next video. I'm keeping my voice down because I don't want to be yelling in here. Uh, we have never started a video like this before, but there's a first time for everything. And I am ready to go into surgery for AFib. I have atrial fibrillation and I'm having an ablation done. And it's very routine, very routine. I'm not even slightly thinking about what am I going to do or is I going to be hurt. I'm going to be fine. And when I put this video out, I'll tell you I'm out and fine. Everything went well. I don't want to just tell you about my surgery because that's not all that interesting. But what I do want to tell you is about a question I get all the time. What happens if I'm on the road and I have a health crisis, medical need surgery? Well, here I am. I can answer your question because I'll tell you just what I did and what I've been doing. I have chronic illnesses. Boy, that sounds terrible. I don't have chronic. I'm fine, but I'm 68 and I have things going on like I'm 68. And so I'll tell you all about it, about how you can deal with your health issues as they come up. Okay, I'll see you in just a little while and tell you how I did. So this is my stylish new attire. I'll be doing all my videos this way from now on. That should really drive up views. So as you saw, I'm having a medical procedure done, and I want to tell you how I've handled it. This was a very short medical procedure. It was a heart surgery. I was anesthetized. I was completely asleep, and they had to come out of it in the recovery room. And so it was a real procedure. And I did the first day or two, I was pretty out of it, pretty physically unable to do anything. So it's this kind of thing can happen to any of us at any time. So this could apply to nearly any of us that have a day surgery, essentially is what I had, except mine was a little more complicated. So I had to stay overnight and leave the next day. That's a common surgery. So I'm going to address that with my experience. But for a lot of you, you're really afraid of long-term problems. So we're going to look at another friend of mine who's a nomad, lives in a van, and he had a knee replacement. Now, that's kind of a long-term thing. Right after the surgery, the replacement, you're under care for a while, and you need usually a fair amount of help. So it's 5 days after my surgery. I feel fine. I do have wound management, but they're very minor wounds. There's just almost nothing. So mine was easy, but I'll tell you how I did it, and then we'll talk to my friend about how he did it with his long-term knee replacement. So like I said, one of the questions I get all the time is, what's going to happen when I need medical help? I think medical attention falls down into three categories. One is short-term, a week or two, or one's a month or two, and then another is chronic. Now, chronic medical condition that doesn't allow you live in a van or on wheels anymore, that's completely beyond the scope of this video. Right now, we're only talking about a medical condition that is recurring, but you have to be in the hospital. I just had to be in the hospital for 3 days. And after that, I couldn't really take care of myself very well. So I rented this house for 5 days, and now I'm fine. So that's a short term. I had a surgery, outpatient surgery, so I wasn't able to go home that night. There was little complications, and I went home the next day. And that's something that might face a lot of us, especially the older we get. And so an easy solution that I found, and I had that money in my emergency fund to do this. This is a bed and breakfast house. And so I invited 3 friends to come and take care of me and watch Cody. I was in the hospital for almost 2 days. And one stayed here and took care of all the dogs, and 2 friends, they went to the hospital with me. So that's how I got through this short-term emergency, and how I'm going to suggest you do it as well. Have an emergency fund that if you need to, you can rent a hotel for $50, $60, $75. That's cheap, but it's probably around. Or I got this whole house, huge house, for $115 a night. And so you can do either one. So this is going to end up costing me $600 or so. I thought this was a true medical emergency, so I took this out of my emergency fund. that's how you'll do it. And if you can't, then you'll go home into your van, your mobile living, whatever it is, or move in with a friend who has a bigger rig and they can help you. Or if you have to go home and live in your own rig, then someone that will live close for park and camp close to you for the next 30, 40 days or however long you need, and take care of you and help you inside your rig. That actually happened to me one time. About 10 years ago, I had a terribly broken wrist and arm. I've lost use of this arm because of it. I've got large scars because of it. Required 4 surgeries over about a year. But I stayed in my van. I lived in my van the entire time. And I had friends that came and took care of me. What I couldn't do, they helped me with. And for a long time of it, I was just on my own. But a friend did come and camp with me. I had lots of friends, and he camped with me for a long time. So even long term, if you have to go home, there is a way around it. But maybe short term, you just have to rent a hotel or a motel or a bed and breakfast. That needs to come out of your emergency fund. So there's 2 things I want you to learn out of this video. You want to see out of this video. First, have an emergency fund so that if you have to rent a hotel room, you can. And have family and friends who will come and take care of you. They're that close to you, love you that much. And also, you love them and care about them, and you will go and take care of them. So folks, you saw me in the hospital doing a minor surgery, it was short term. I was out in about 5 days and I couldn't even tell it happened. So that really isn't a good example of what happens if you have medical needs, that extended time where you have a medical need. How do you handle that on the road? Well, so today we're meeting my new friend, Tim. Hi, Tim.
Hello, Bob.
And you have some experience with that needing a medical attention that lasted for quite a while. Tell us about what you've just gone through.
Last year, I had this knee replaced. And so I had to find a location that I could have the surgery that would be at the right temperature, long enough for me to have the surgery, and then post-op. And then it was difficult getting the doctors to understand that I live in my van, and that means that, no, I can't just go home and, have the shower and everything else. And so they ended up moving me from there to a second hospital for about 4 or 5 days where they did the rehab. So I was in the hospital for about 10 days. And then after that, I was just out here in the desert, walking around recovering, and did that. And then now I'm back here ready for the second knee.
Doing it again.
Yeah.
And so how long were you unable really to take care of yourself?
I was very fortunate. I had full recovery at about 2 months, and they said that most people don't get that until 6 or 8 months. The first month and a half, it was tough, but one of the things about living this lifestyle is you like challenges. Anyway, I do. And I'd been doing it for a while and gotten kind of bored. And I found myself enjoying my recovery after the surgery because I had to figure out how to do things with one leg. But I had to talk to them many times before they finally realized, oh, you can't just go home. And so they just move you to a rehab hospital, and they have physical therapists come and work with you while you're there, and instead of driving to your house like most people do.
And you had friends come and help?
No.
No, you did it all just by yourself?
Yeah.
But you still had regular appointments, like every couple?
Up until I had a 2-week appointment, I had a 1-month appointment, and then 20 days after I had to come in because that's when they'd remove the staples. And it was cold by then, and I was aching in the cold. And so as soon as they cut those staples, I went south.
So one of the questions I know my audience has is a lot of them fall in that gap between before they're too young to draw Social Security.
Right.
And so but they can't afford medical insurance.
Yes, I can. But my income's low enough, and I have a state of residence, thank God, that believes their citizens deserve health care. Many states don't.
Absolutely.
And so for those who consider being a nomad, that's a very important
Very important.
consideration.
And
So
we're in Nevada, so you're a
yes,
Nevada resident.
yeah, and so that works out, you know, and I don't cheat the system. I live on very little in a van, you know, and I paid into this for 20 years into this state as well. So, you know, this is part of what I need, and so, but you have to jump through the hoops and be willing to, you know, look into it, and it's be patient. And if you can outweigh them, you can usually beat them.
Well, that is an awful lot of it, real patience. So, folks, that's a really important lesson that we can learn here is that if you don't have insurance, and it's one of your biggest questions, choose a state where they're willing to help you if you're low income, and then you have to stay low income. You can't cheat them. You have to be low income. So that's a really, really important lesson here,
Hmm.
and determination.
Yeah.
Were there specific problems that were unusually difficult for you to solve? I mean, basically, you only had one leg.
Right, right. Well, if you look at a van, I don't know if you can see it, but I drive one because it gives you good clearance. That means I've got to step up into the van, you know, and so I was worried, can I step up into the van and can I get in and everything, and I found out I could, and I'd made it out a lot worse in my mind than it needed to be in reality. That first day when I got dropped off by a bus that drove me a ride, and I had to go to Walmart to pick up because they'd deliver the groceries to me, but they wouldn't deliver the drugs to me in the parking lot. So I had to go into the Walmart and get one of those little buggies and, you know, try to get in and out of there without running people over. And I was not in a good state. You know,
No,
I was in pain, and but you just get through it, and you think it through.
you make it sound so easy.
Well, you know, I hear you.
There were hard times.
There's well, the last Monday, they're gonna cut this knee off. It's like gone, you know, and you got to wrap your mind around that. I think the mental, you've got to wrap your head around it. And then when, you know, instead of, oh, this is terrible, they canceled my appointment or they canceled my surgery, you know, well, no, you just go and you fix it and then you do it. And yeah, you can say, oh, holy crap, or you can say, oh, that's okay. I just wasn't meant to be this week. It'll be
Mhm.
next week, you know.
Well, it sounds a lot like living in the moment and acceptance.
That's what I love about this lifestyle, Bob.
Yeah.
I've lived in this van for, this is my 7th year, and I paid for camping zero. I'm always out in the wilderness, and nature's healing for me, and it's the salve, you know.
We should mention also you have a dog, and so
Yes,
that creates a lot of extra work in itself.
yes, it does. I had another nomad couple my first knee surgery, and they watched it, but then they were going to stay here, but then they had a family emergency, and so they headed down the border. So I was away from my dog for 2 months, and that was hard on the dog and me.
So there you have it, folks. We talked to Tim, and you can have a pretty major surgery out here and work your way through it. I really appreciate your sharing that with us, Tim. I think that's going to be really helpful to a lot of people.
No problem.
So, folks, now we'll move on and I'll give you my final thoughts next. Okay, so I know this was a long video and we covered a lot of ground. I think it's really important because one of the questions, as I've said, I get more often than anyone else is we're older people, a lot of us. What are we going to do if we have medical issues? And so I'm just trying to address that with real world examples, my own example and Tim's examples. So hopefully this gives you an idea of what people actually do. Let me summarize it by saying I think there's three important things that you need to be able to face a medical emergency. Number one is have a home base where you have a doctor. Uh, my home base is Pahrump, Nevada. All this, the hospital was in Las Vegas. I did a follow-up was here, and my cardiologist is here in Pahrump. I travel through Pahrump twice a year, in the spring and the fall, when it's not too cold, when it's not too hot. So I travel through Pahrump and see my doctors, do labs, get procedures done, and that's what I recommend for you. The point being, choose a home state that you travel through spring and fall, and then have your doctor there, and any procedures or problems you're going to have. If it's an emergency, well, there's just nothing you can do. You deal with the emergency wherever you are. So that's number one, have a home base where you have your doctor located. Number two is to have an emergency fund. So this was a planned procedure. I'm under Medicare. I have almost no expenses out of all of this. It's not coming out of my emergency fund. But if I'm going to have to be in the hospital for a while, and then I'm going to have a recovery, then as I said, and as I showed you, I rented a B&B for 5 days. And I had the emergency fund to do that. It really wasn't that expensive. My friends came and cared for me. And then finally, have a community. Build as many friends. Boy, there's nothing more important in this life than building community, having friends. And as Tim and I discussed, most of them would be sad to find out you needed them and didn't ask. Have friends that will be disappointed in you if you don't ask for help. Be a friend that if you find out someone needed you and they didn't ask you, you're sad, and you tell them, I wish you had. I'd have loved to come and been there for you. You know, you can do this. You can face a medical emergency on the road or procedures, and eventually, you know, you get too old and you won't be able to be on the road anymore. That's another question for another day. We're not discussing that question. So hope you got something out of this video. If you did, like us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, and have an emergency fund, have a home base, and build a community. Your life will be so much better if you will do those things. Talk to you on the next video. Bye now.